the projects are beginning to pile up. These are a pair of the 9.8 horsepower power heads, the 110s. And one of them has electronic ignition and the other one has points. And I guess one of the things I want to do is, for example, this one right here, it's a nice little motor, is build it to the 10 horsepower spec. Kind of take the same spirit that I've done with the chainsaws and bring it back to these. This one as well. That one there we're going to tear down to the bearings and build it back up so you can see, you know, what they look like on the inside. Hopefully out of these 5 we get at least 3. Beginning to organize and rearrange the shop. This was our first attempt at a boat stand and it was too vertical. This was attempt number 2 and that was much more successful. So we've got a couple of them cut out to make another couple of these stands. And once I have these stands stable, that means I can start working on these bigger motors. Because part of the problem with these is having a situation where you can pull the power heads and actually manipulate the larger motors, you know. And that's a 3-cylinder, and I don't know how good it is. I got it for like 25 bucks. And this is another inline 6. And I want to build this motor into a configuration more like this one. So these 2 inline 6s are eventually going to end up being 1. Well, it's a really crappy day yet again. It's been raining non-stop for what seems like months, you know. I think I mentioned and complained about it in my prior video when I took that blue monster up on the hill and got it running. Headed up on the hill. I'm going to grab some firewood, and you might ask, why would I do that? Well, if this is any kind of an omen for the weather, that means that we're going to have one hell of a rough winter. So I grab as much firewood off the hill as I can right until snow flies and says I can't do it anymore. You know, there was a time when I was a little bit younger, I'd come up with a snowmobile and drag it off the hill right until the winter time. But I'm not that enthusiastic anymore. So I grab what I can when I can, and when the snow blocks the road, I'm done. I've got the new Farmer Tech power heads in the back. I've got the G372, which is patterned off the 372 Husqvarna original edition, and I've got that G660, which is patterned off the old Steel 066, and I've been running them and will continue to run them, and if the rain isn't too bad today, I'll do some today. They've been doing the bulk of the work this last, I don't know, couple of weeks maybe. I've burned probably 5 gallons of gas through those saws to this point in time, and they're working pretty well. You know, the more I run them, the better they get, which is a difference from some of the kit saws we started out with. But for the most part, these new power heads they're putting together run better than the kit saws. Just simple as that. A lot of it has to do with carburation, and we're going to address that in future videos. One of the things that'd be interesting to me is to see how fast you can get these things started on a nasty day, because one of the first impressions you get of a saw is getting it out of your truck when it's been sitting in there for a couple of weeks, putting gas in it, firing it up. So I think that's what I want to do. May not be interesting to you, but I'm going to document it because it's interesting to me. Now I've got a couple of saws in the back of the truck that have been sitting there. One of them is my ultimate old man saw, and that's an Autotune. So I think a good comparison would be Autotune versus carburetors with a choke on a cold day, and OEM carbureted saws versus aftermarket carbureted saws tweaked by me. And the cast of characters is actually quite diverse. And I think I'm going to do that. Alright, let's go through the cast of characters. And there's quite a mix of saws in here. That is effectively a Husqvarna 560. That's where I built a 5 60 out of 555 cases and the 562 top end. And it's not completely stock, obviously, because I blended all those parts together. Plus it has a little bit of a compression hit. But believe it or not, it pretty much represents that whole class of Autotunes quite well. That is my 365 I turned into a 372 on a video about 2 or 3 years ago. And it's literally been sitting for a long time. It doesn't have the best chance of winning this race simply because of how long it's been sitting and how long the gas has been sitting in that saw. That's the kit saw, and it's been sitting for a little bit. There's the G372. That has the freshest gas of all the saws here. That's been sitting for a little bit as well. That's the highway build on top of OEM cases with some other aftermarket parts mixed in, like the tank handle and pull start and stuff like that. All these saws have had their time in video. There is a bone stock 390. It's stock in every way, including the compression. And that's the devil with the blue dress on saw right there. And it too has fairly fresh gas. So my prediction is the gas that's sitting in the saws is actually going to affect how these saws start. But this is reality, you know. Saws sit out in the truck. I'm going to guess that's going to do fairly well regardless. The G372 is going to surprise everybody. And the G660, I don't know. Depends on whether or not I can get the high idle to work or not, because it also has a little bit of an issue there. And then you can throw the blanket over the rest of them. They're going to wear me out, let's put it that way. Oh, look at this. I'm going to bury that old axe I've been hammering on since 2004 or so. And I went and picked up this gem at Wal-Mart for like 20 bucks, 25 bucks. And it's going to meet Mr. Sledgehammer right here, just like its predecessor did. And I'm afraid it's in for a tough life. I'm going to set the camera up and I'm just going to work my way through them. And when I get them started, I'm going to set them over there somewhere to let them idle. And we'll start the show with the Autotune. I'm going to go Autotune first, 365, 372 second, 390 third, G372 fourth, G660 fifth. You know, so basically getting the pre-built saws out of the way, and then I'll follow it with the other two aftermarket saws. And this is a race. Which one starts the first? With the least amount of hassle and the least amount of pulls. That's the definition of win. my workout for the day. And that Autotune did not disappoint. And I could hardly pull this stupid thing over because of the compression is so freaking high. That was the hardest. Here's the takeaway for me. Autotune was easiest because it's an Autotune. It has the primer bulb, and it was smaller displacement. So that's what you'd expect. So what I'm going to do is go through and do a restart on each one of these as I discuss them. Now you might understand why I really like these saws. And this one in particular is my favorite saw right now. Even though I don't get a chance to run it much, I've been distracted by so many other things. Combination of ease of use, power, lightweight, lack of vibration. If I only had one saw to work with and I had to choose from all the saws I have, I'd choose this one here or my 562 Hilltop saw shop build. Those would be my two first picks. And before I get into these other saws, my third and fourth pick would be that saw right there. Let me just see if it restarts easy. And my Farmer Jones, which I don't have today. Everything else you can throw a blanket. This is that 365 I turned into a 372 a few years back. And basically what it is, it's a 372 XPW top end on 365 cases. The label right there is 365. And then I put the 372 filter cover and filter holder and stuff like that on this saw just to show that you could do it. So these are the two OEM saws that sit in my top 5. Let's go right to the G372 and see if it does a restart. It does, but you can tell this one here, even though it started pretty easy, it was actually surprisingly easy. This saw here represents a little bit lower compression because it has a squish in the 40 thousandths range that a stock saw would have. That one's not that much better, by the way, but it still starts, right? And my guess is if I have a good OEM carburetor on this saw right here, it's really easy to live with, you know? Now I can only hope this monster restarts. And I'm sorry to all the haters out there. This one here has been a very pleasant surprise. And just in this little episode here, it has performed better than I would have expected, especially starting and especially the restart. Alright. This is a 390 stock, and it was a little bit harder to start than I would have liked, but of course it's been sitting longer as well. And being a 90cc saw, it's a little harder for me to pull it over. might be asking, how come I always go back and do that restart thing? That tells you a lot about the low speed tune of the saw. If it's got an air leak or it's carbureted a little bit lean, it's very, very hard to get it restarted. And one of the things you'll see if you get a saw heated up, and if it's got issues in its carburation and fuel supply, possibly with air leaks, restarting them is very tough. All right. Here's kit saw, and it was expectedly a pain in the neck. This is another saw that would really benefit from a good carburetor. But it restarts. This saw here was the hardest one for me to start, and part of it's fault, part of it's my fault, and part of it's been sitting in the bucket of my John Deere since the last time I used it. Probably when you saw the video a couple of months back, before I got my hip surgery. And the compression on this thing is just stupid, so it's really hard for me to pull it over, as you probably saw. So let me see if I can pull it over without the compression release on restart. See, that's not bad. Just getting it started in the morning is a real pain in the neck. Now, another thing I'm going to tell you, and this is going to make some of the haters go nuts. Of all the 372 variants in this pile, including my favorite 365 372 XPW, this will cook them all. This one here has the most power. And yeah, it's got OEM bottom end, and it's got some aftermarket stuff like the tank handle and handle. But it's got a highway cylinder that I had to deck because the bore was just a little bit out, and I decked it down to 20,000s. And this damn thing runs strong. I think if you look back at some of the videos, you'll be surprised at how well this one stands up to, well, this one here, which actually toasted a stock X-Torque. So there it is. There's our start race. This is going to be a pretty short video. I just can't believe how much junk I've got. Jeez, all these freaking saws. What am I going to do with all these freaking saws? And I think the other thing that I want to do today while I'm over here is I want to see if that new Wal-Mart axe can stand up to at least one log of a thrashing like the old one did that I had for the last decade. Alright, I jumped the gas out of those saws into the other saws. So we'll just see how long it takes them to run out of gas from the fuel pickup tube through to the carburetor. Saws are going to get retired for the year, so I run them out of gas, and they'll get put in the retirement home. I think this is a Walmart meets reality moment. See whether or not their product has improved from the years past. Oh well, this is not starting well. going to give that kit saw a little bit of a workout. This one here is about out of gas. Let's see if it restarts. Yeah, it's about out of gas, but I don't know if you noticed, that kit saw right there is quite a bit stronger than the G372. And the more I run this one, the stronger it gets. And a big difference between this one and the as delivered G372 is I decked that cylinder, got it pretty close to what I was looking for, you know, in terms of compression. So I'm not really sure if the parts are sourced from the same place either, because things like the hardware has got a different color. And so I really don't know how close the G372 is to the kit, so I really don't know. And I've run out of gas total. I don't have any more gas in the can. I'd have to dump it out of the saws. And since I've been putting wood in the truck, all my saws and stuff are behind that wood, so I think I'm pretty much done. Put the saw in there and pack wood in there and go home, make a little video. Yeah, I don't know if you can see over there, the rain is coming. But it doesn't look like it from this direction though, does it? But it is. Well, maybe it does. This view right here is looking out towards Ithaca and Cayuga Lake. The camera doesn't do it justice. It's one of the most beautiful views.